Hello, it's been a few months since we've talked about tariffs, but now it's time to dive back in and see how the automotive landscape is responding. Joining me today is Kelley Blue Book editor Sean Tucker. Sean, thanks for jumping on a quick call.
No problem. Good to be with you again.
So I think the first question I have prices climbed, and is it because of the tariffs?
Prices have climbed a tiny little bit, but not nearly as much as everybody was expecting. The average new car price in July was 2.5% higher than it was a year ago, which is really not unusual inflation, maybe a little higher than normal. It is somewhat because of the tariffs, but for the most part, what we've seen is that automakers and dealers are discounting cars to keep the tariff hit from really hitting the consumer. So you see the sticker price is rising. The actual price people pay, not really.
So what are they doing to try to keep that price low?
Heavy discounts. They are, in some sense, they are taking a loss. Ford had one of its best sales months it's had in years last month and lost money doing it because of all the discounts that they're putting on these cars. They're taking a gamble and getting more Fords on the road in order to do that. That's going to benefit them in the long run, but they're actually losing money on the sale right now.
It doesn't seem like a sustainable game plan.
Right. And if you're in the market, that's kind of what you have to be aware of right now, is that we have not seen prices increase yet. We are going to see prices increase. It's a question of when.
So my next question was, how have consumers responded to the uncertainty? But it sounds like they're going out and buying cars now.
Yeah, sales are a little lower than they were this time last summer. They're a little lower than we would normally expect to see them. There was kind of an effect where people rushed out to buy the cars that were imported at pre-tariff prices. And we think some people who would have been car shopping in the summer, they shopped a little earlier than they planned to because of that. So the rate's a little bit down right now, but for the most part, people are still shopping.
What does current product supply look like?
It's back to normal. It spiked a little bit as the tariffs were approaching because the car companies wanted to import as many cars as they could before the tariff had started. And then it went down a little bit when people, shopped at a higher rate. Now it's back to pretty much where it was in the spring.
What do you think the automotive landscape will look like next year, if you could predict as best you can? And then alternatively to that question, what's happening right now in the used market?
Right. So over the next year, we do expect to see prices start to rise. The issue is that in the early days of the tariffs, automakers said, we're not sure what's going to happen, so we're going to try to protect the consumer for as long as we can. But the White House has now signed some long-term trade deals. And on paper, it looks like the tariffs have gone down. It was 25% for a brief period, and they signed 15% with Japan, 15% with the European Union, and so on. But to the automakers, that's a very different signal, because now that something is signed on a piece of paper, they're saying, oh, okay, this is going to last. So they cannot afford to keep those discounts going forever, and we expect to see prices start to rise. The used market's in pretty good shape right now. We predict used prices by looking at the price that dealers are paying at auction, because usually about 6 or 8 weeks out, that's the price that controls the price you're going to pay. Auction prices have gone down recently. So the used market's in pretty good shape, and I think those prices, if they come up, they're going to come up slower than the new market.
Which automakers, in terms of regionality or where they're originally based, which ones are poised to have the biggest uphill battle, and which ones have the easiest potential road in terms of pricing strategy?
So ironically, right now, the tariffs were designed to protect the domestic industry, and the domestic industry is in the worst position because we signed a 15% deal with Japan, we signed a 15% deal with the EU, we signed a 15% deal with South Korea. So all of those automakers are paying 15%. It's still 25% with Mexico and Canada. And Ford, General Motors, and Stellantis have a lot of investment in Mexico and Canada. So the domestic automakers are actually paying a higher tariff rate than their foreign rivals right now.
Wow, interesting. Anything that consumers should keep an eye on going forward, and what news should they be looking out for or listening if they're considering buying a car in the near future?
So we know that prices are going to go up at some point. They have to. And the best opportunity for them to go up is as the 2026 models start rolling into dealer lots, because there's always a price increase when the new model year comes along. It's just probably going to be a little bigger than normal. So if you're in the market right now, I would say really look at those 2025s. The 2026, in most cases, is a very similar product that's going to be more expensive because we're expecting to see them start to build in tariff prices as those roll into the lot.
Awesome. I think this was all some clear and helpful guidance in what previously was a less than clear situation. Sean, thanks for jumping on and answering these questions. That was very helpful.
Thanks, Jeff.